So for the quarantine still life, you are going to create an arrangement of three or more objects that have brought you comfort during this time or joy, things that have been important to you during this time. Really quickly, I just want to talk to you about how to set that up. So if we look at this example here, we have the toilet paper rolls. They're not really stacked directly on top of each other. So there's like this, this interest here of this sort of coming over to the right. Um, we also have this guy, which is on an angle, and we see the extra toilet paper kind of crumpled and adding some interest. Also bringing our eye to the left. This also creates sort of a triangular arrangement of objects. The inclusion of the paintbrushes helps to, balance the toilet paper. There's a nice contrast between like the skinny paintbrushes, also the dark handle on the paintbrushes versus the bright white of the toilet paper. Um, and we also have this extra little Purell bottle, which adds another bit of interest. Um, we have negative space around all of our objects. Nothing is sitting on the bottom of the composition, right? Yeah, this toilet paper leads us to the bottom left corner. However, it doesn't continue. It stops, and we have the red background to help keep our eye within this composition, okay? Um, we also have some negative space between the objects. Like we have a little sliver of negative space between the toilet paper and the Purell bottle, as well as some space down underneath the Purell bottle. So that gives our eye a place to rest. It gives us, a way to understand that like this is our focal point, right? Like our eye kind of goes, for me anyway, it goes right here, the toilet paper. It's bright white against this dark red background. The paintbrushes are pointing towards it. We have this diagonal line. So these are all elements of composition that we need to think about as we are arranging our objects. Also a light source. We can see these bright highlights as well as these cast shadows. So we know that the light is coming from somewhere off to the right-hand side. And what that does is it helps you as the artist understand what you're drawing so that you can have the highlights and shadows to make your objects look appropriately three-dimensional. You can also see that this artist set up a red tablecloth or sheet or whatever it is. And maybe it wasn't even red. Maybe they just made it red with their paint, doesn't matter. But it's a simple backdrop. We don't have to worry about, oh, this is a table and this is a wall and blah, blah, blah. It's just a simple backdrop so that we're focusing on just the objects. Okay. So that's up to you how you want to do that. Here as well. This is a, traditional still life. And we can see that we see a simple table at the bottom. We see a simple dark background. It lets all of that fruit really pop. We see a nice complement between the sort of orangey yellow versus the purples. Contrast of texture between the woven basket versus like the fuzzy fruit and the smooth leaves. So including things that have different textures, different shapes, different sizes, all also help to create a well-balanced composition. Here we have the brown loaf of bread versus the little white toilet paper versus the larger white milk jug against that really nice dark background. And in both of these, you can see that the light source is coming from the left. We see these dark cast shadows on the right here as well. And then we see the highlights on the left of the object. So all of that is very important. So if we click here, this will take us to another slideshow. I did put this together specifically for Still Life with Pears from last year, but that's okay. We can still look at this. So most of the examples in this have fruit of some kind in them, which is always a good subject matter for still life. But Cezanne was known for a lot of his still lifes, eventually sort of simplifying the round curvy shapes into more like these geometric shapes. And that's sort of where Cubism kind of started. Using a tablecloth or even like a dish towel as a foundation can add a lot of interest with the folds and the creases in the fabric. But use what you have around the house, and something very, very simple can also work really well. This is sort of more of like a an analogous or almost a monochromatic color scheme. Like here we have a lot of contrast with the warm peaches, fruit, whatever it is, versus more of the cooler background, right? But here everything is sort of like the same, like greenish, orangey, brownish color, and everything kind of matches. So as far as how you choose color, totally up to you. Again, here this is more of a monochromatic palette. Everything is sort of like these shades of green, right? But overlapping objects. We have one object in front of the other that adds depth. We also have here almost that space between the two objects. Very simple, right? Overlapping is important. If they were just side by side, meh, you know, this adds more depth to the composition. Again, here we have a simple background. We do have sort of a horizon line here. We have a large jug, and then our eye kind of trickles down along the pears here, and they are facing different directions. They're slightly different colors. We have really small ones versus larger ones, green ones versus brown ones. So there's a lot of interest happening in this. Here we have a more realistic or like photorealistic representation of a still life. We have things like a little canister, loaf of bread. You can include a mug or a glass, a bottle of some kind, any kind of fruit. Okay, so these are all from different time periods, but all pretty much including fruit of some kind, right? Um, we looked at the Wayne Tybo paintings of the cakes earlier this year, and we saw that things were very simple, how he kind of aligns things up in his paintings. So here we see an apple, again, strong light source. We see things that are sort of spaced out. We have this really strong sense of the depth of like how far that cheese is. Okay. Overlapping, shadows, highlights, a repetition. Here's the cakes that we did already look at, right? Um, Again, including drapery or fabric, different sized objects, different textured objects, like a smooth tea kettle versus the fruit versus the fabric. So these are just some interesting little still lifes. Van Gogh, we see his typical brush strokes here, just sort of a pile of pears. But again, they're all facing different directions. They're overlapping. They're on top of each other. A lot of movement going on here. Apples. Okay. And these are all Van Gogh here at the end. Okay. Here you can see something. It's almost like the white tablecloth just came out of the package and was put on the table, and we can still see the creases from when it was folded. But we do see the shadow, the cast shadow. We know our light source is coming from here. Here's some contemporary examples. These are sort of related to what's going on right now. Of course, needing Clorox all the time, right? This is a photograph, but sort of very typical of the old traditional style of still life. We see the overlapping, we see a lot of negative space, right? Fabric versus background, a strong light source. The light source with the mini blinds kind of also adds some interest to the background. So here we just see, cleaning supplies. So you could go with like a theme. Maybe it is all fruit. Maybe it is cleaning supplies. Maybe it's art supplies. Maybe it's, things that are important to you. Like maybe you're really into video games. So it's like your video game console or whatever. Maybe you're really into houseplants and you want to just draw, your orchids or whatever you have. Okay. And what you can do too is take a photo. Like let's say you have the light streaming through your window. It's the perfect time of day. You have these beautiful highlights and these beautiful shadows. Grab your phone, take a picture. That way you have that photo reference and you can work from that photo rather than working from real life. Because if the light changes, it can kind of throw you off. Okay. So take a photo, print it out, or just look at it on your phone or on your computer screen and draw from that. Okay. And I know most of the still lifes we looked at were done with paint. Most of you probably don't have paint at home, but you can use colored pencil, pastel, chalk pastel, oil pastel, watercolor, keep it simple and just use a ballpoint pen like when we did Bluevember and Inktober. You can use marker. You could use the marker with cross hatching or stippling. We've learned all of these techniques, so anything is doable. As far as surface goes, also anything is doable. For the mosaic project, we're working on the inside of a cereal box. That is actually a really cool surface to draw on because it's smooth, it's brown usually, maybe has like speckly colors in it. If you use the inside of a cereal box, so why not use that? Use the cardboard. And pen or marker or color pencil will show up really cool on that. Even just straight up pencil, whatever you have is fine. Okay, so I know I just showed you guys like a lot of oil paintings, but you don't have to obviously paint, only if you have it. All right, so that is still life in a nutshell. Arrange your objects in an interesting way. Make sure you have a strong direct light source. Make sure there's some negative space around your objects where things aren't going off to the edge of the paper. Um, like this composition honestly bothers me because the tops of these toilet paper rolls are being cut off. If this were me, I would want like another 4 or so inches at the top of this so that there was negative space on top of those toilet paper rolls because it's kind of annoying that they're getting cut off. So something like here where everything is surrounded by negative space, we're able to let our eyes rest. We're able to have enough interest and variation that we are, interested in the drawing or the painting that we're looking at. Okay. So 3 objects that have brought you joy or comfort or that have been important to you while you're at home. Maybe things that you now see differently because you're with them 24/7, right? Um, so have fun with this. Look at the resources. There's video tutorials in Schoology. And again, reach out with any questions as per usual. So have fun with this, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Thanks for watching.